Have you ever witnessed an event so shocking, so unsettling, that it seemed to unravel not only what you saw before your eyes, but also the hidden corners of your own mind? Imagine a world where privilege and power are absolute, where every life is measured by status, and where the very body of a person can become a mirror reflecting desire, fear, and the shadows we dare not face. This is a story that forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that what we see in others is often a reflection of the deepest parts of ourselves, and that the line between dominion and vulnerability is far thinner than we ever imagine. The plantation, with its sprawling fields and imposing mansion, is more than just a physical space. It is a living symbol of a rigid social order, a microcosm of a world governed by absolute power, inherited privilege, and unquestioned authority. Every tree, every path, every building carries the weight of centuries of tradition, expectation, and hierarchy, and every individual within its bounds is a representation of their assigned role within that order. To step onto the plantation is to step into a world meticulously designed to enforce social dominance, to delineate lines between the rulers and the ruled, between those who walk freely under the sun and those who labor under the heavy burden of servitude. The atmosphere is thick with invisible codes, unspoken rules that dictate behavior, posture, and speech, and the psychological impact of such an environment is as potent as its physical constraints, shaping the minds, the desires, and the fears of all who dwell within it. For the owners, the plantation is a stage upon which they enact their authority, a place where their social superiority is not only affirmed but demanded by the very architecture, by the visible separations between quarters and fields, between the lush gardens and the labor-worn cottages. Every element serves as a reminder of rank, of control, of who may command and who must obey. And this structure does not merely govern the external world, but penetrates the internal, molding the psyche of the inhabitants to fit the contours of dominance and submission. The hierarchy is absolute, yet it is internalized by both parties, creating a psychological prison in which power is both wielded and respected, where fear, reverence, and obligation intermingle to sustain a social order that is fragile yet fiercely defended. Within this structure, the plantation owner is not merely a figure of wealth or authority, but a symbol of omnipotence, embodying the collective belief in a natural order that justifies privilege and demands obedience, while the slaves are transformed into living instruments of labor, their bodies, time, and very existence controlled in ways that reinforce their status as property, yet also as human beings subjected to psychological pressures that erode individuality and enforce compliance. This complex interplay of dominance and submission creates a fertile ground for tension, for psychological projection, and for the emergence of hidden fears and desires. The spatial organization of the plantation, mansion on the hill, fields stretching outward, slave quarters relegated to the periphery, reflects the inner workings of the human mind, mirroring the conscious awareness of superiority and the unconscious fear of disorder, rebellion, and exposure. The plantation is a crucible where social expectations and personal identities collide, producing a heightened awareness of self in relation to others, where every glance, every word, and every gesture is laden with meaning and potential consequence. Within this environment, individuals are constantly negotiating their position, conscious of the omnipresent gaze of authority and the subtle pressures of peer observation. The daughter of the plantation owner, enveloped in the comfort of wealth and privilege, experiences the hierarchy as a form of entitlement, internalizing the notion that her will is law and that the lives of those around her exist to serve her needs. Her understanding of the world is mediated by this spatial and social order, and her body, her behavior, and even her psychological development are shaped by the unchallenged power that surrounds her, creating a sense of invulnerability and detachment from the struggles of those beneath her. For the slaves, the plantation is both home and prison, a place where their labor is exploited, their freedoms constrained, and their identities suppressed, yet it is also a space where resilience, subtle resistance, and adaptive intelligence emerge. They navigate a complex web of rules, expectations, and psychological pressures, learning to anticipate the desires of the powerful while managing their own fears and aspirations. The hierarchy enforces a constant awareness of status, ensuring that every action is evaluated not only for its immediate consequence, but for its implications within the broader social order. The psychological tension is unrelenting. The plantation functions as a stage for the enactment of human dramas, where oppression and ambition, fear and desire, dominance and submission are played out daily, shaping the inner lives of all participants. Power, in this context, is not simply a matter of physical control, but a force that infiltrates thought, emotion, and behavior, compelling individuals to conform to roles that are both visible and invisible, tangible and psychological. The plantation thus becomes an environment in which the external imposition of hierarchy mirrors the internalization of social roles, creating a fertile ground for the exploration of the human psyche, the confrontation with shadow aspects, and the examination of morality, identity, and the consequences of unchecked authority. Within this complex ecosystem, every interaction, every decision, and every deviation from expected norms reverberates through both the conscious and unconscious minds of those involved, producing patterns of behavior that are simultaneously adaptive, repressive, and revealing, illustrating the profound ways in which social structure shapes not only society, but the very essence of human experience. The daughter of the plantation owner, whose body was heavy and indulgent, serves as a profound symbol that extends far beyond her physical form. Her obesity is not merely a matter of nutrition or genetics. It embodies layers of cultural, psychological, and symbolic meaning, reflecting the complex interplay between privilege, desire, vulnerability, and the human psyche. Within the insular world of the plantation, her body is both a mirror and a mask, revealing the excesses of a sheltered upbringing while concealing the insecurities and dependencies that thrive under the surface of wealth and entitlement. Her physical presence, marked by size and weight, becomes a visible manifestation of indulgence, representing a life insulated from struggle, discipline, and accountability, yet simultaneously exposing her to scrutiny, envy, and fascination from those around her. In this sense, her body transforms into a canvas on which the social and psychological dynamics of the plantation are painted, illustrating how environment and circumstance shape identity, perception, and self-worth. The daughter's indulgence in food and comfort is symbolic of a deeper consumption of privilege, status, and power, and it highlights the ways in which the elite are often distanced from reality, protected by wealth and authority from the harsh consequences of their actions or desires. In a world where physical labor, scarcity, and struggle define existence for the majority, her obesity becomes a marker of otherness, a boundary between the controlled lives of the powerful and the constrained lives of the oppressed. Psychologically, her body represents both abundance and vulnerability, a paradox in which the very trait that signifies privilege also exposes fragility, dependence, and susceptibility to forces beyond her control. It is through this lens that the daughter's obesity can be interpreted as a manifestation of the unconscious, a physical projection of desires and impulses that remain unexamined, repressed, or misunderstood within the structured hierarchy of the plantation. Her size embodies indulgence and excess, yes, but it also hints at fear, emotional hunger, and an inner void that wealth and status cannot fill, signaling the profound limitations of external validation in shaping inner contentment. The symbolism of her body is further enriched by the cultural and social context of the plantation, where appearances are heavily policed and deviation from established norms is both noticed and commented upon. Her obesity marks her as both exceptional and vulnerable, a figure of fascination and potentially of threat, for it challenges conventional ideas of beauty, discipline, and moral order while exposing the contradictions inherent in the values upheld by the elite. In the eyes of the slaves, the daughter's body may elicit envy, pity, or contempt, reflecting the psychological projections of those who live under strict deprivation and constraint, highlighting the tension between admiration of her comfort and awareness of her vulnerability. In the eyes of her family and peers, her size may be simultaneously dismissed, tolerated, or criticized, revealing how familial and societal pressures shape perception, self-esteem, and the interpretation of physicality. Her body thus becomes a focal point for understanding the ways in which privilege, identity, and psychological projection intersect, demonstrating how physical form can both convey and conceal aspects of the inner self. Beyond the immediate social dynamics, the daughter's obesity also functions as a symbol of the unconscious forces that govern human behavior, embodying impulses, desires, and fears that exist beyond rational control. It is a visual representation of imbalance, of indulgence unchecked by discipline or foresight, and it challenges the observer to confront questions about the nature of excess, the limits of autonomy, and the consequences of neglecting the integration of mind, body, and spirit. Her weight is not only a physical fact, but also a psychological and symbolic artifact, a signpost of human vulnerability, and a reminder that external privilege cannot insulate one from the deeper processes of transformation, confrontation, and reckoning that life inevitably brings. In the narrative context, the daughter's body sets the stage for dramatic tension, serving as both a literal and figurative site where power, control, and consequence intersect. It becomes the arena through which themes of dominance, submission, curiosity, and moral confrontation are explored, illustrating how the human body can function as a medium of narrative, a repository of symbolic meaning, and a mirror of both conscious and unconscious processes. Her obesity, in its complexity, also underscores the interplay between social expectation and personal identity, between visible form and hidden reality, revealing the layers of meaning that a body can hold when viewed through psychological, cultural, and symbolic lenses. It challenges observers to see beyond surface appearances, to consider the interplay of environment, upbringing, desire, and vulnerability, and to recognize that the human form is never merely a biological entity, but also a manifestation of psychological, social, and symbolic truths that shape and reflect the broader human experience. In this way, the daughter's presence, defined by her size and the reactions it provokes, becomes a central element in understanding not only her own narrative trajectory, but also the psychological dynamics of those around her, illuminating the intricate web of power, projection, symbolism, and human consciousness that defines life within and beyond the plantation. The act of giving the plantation owner's daughter to a slave is more than a shocking event in the story. It represents a profound psychological and social upheaval, a transgression that challenges the boundaries of power, privilege, and human expectation. On the surface, it appears as an exercise of authority, a demonstration of absolute dominion over both life and social order. Yet beneath this action lies a complex interplay of symbolism, unconscious desires, and the confrontation between societal norms and human instinct. In a society where hierarchy is strictly enforced, where the distinctions between master and servant are delineated by birth, wealth, and labor, this act disrupts the very fabric of understanding, forcing both the oppressor and the oppressed to confront roles, power, and identity in ways that are rarely acknowledged or examined. The daughter, whose body already signifies excess, indulgence, and vulnerability, becomes an instrument of psychological tension, embodying the collision between innocence, entitlement, and exposure to forces beyond her comprehension or control. The slave, whose life has been defined by restriction, obedience, and survival under the gaze of unyielding authority, is placed in a position of moral, emotional, and psychological confrontation, forced to navigate an encounter that defies both the expected hierarchy and internalized norms of behavior. The gift, in essence, blurs the lines between dominance and submission, revealing that power is not merely a matter of social rank, but a fluid, dynamic force that interacts with the unconscious mind, desire, fear, and projection. The plantation owner's decision to give his daughter to a slave is simultaneously an assertion of control and a revelation of vulnerability, a demonstration that even those who wield power are capable of shocking, destabilizing, and transgressing their own societal frameworks when unconscious impulses or perverse curiosity intervene. This act operates on multiple levels, functioning both as a literal transaction and as a symbolic narrative of inversion, reversal, and confrontation with shadow aspects. Psychologically, it represents the collision of the conscious world, governed by rules and social expectation, with the unconscious, where impulses, fears, and desires reside unexamined, waiting for recognition. The daughter, previously insulated by privilege, is abruptly exposed to realities of vulnerability, dependency, and corporeal fragility, confronting her with aspects of human experience that wealth and status have shielded her from. The slave, in turn, is confronted with a moral paradox and the latent power dynamics that can arise when societal roles are disrupted, revealing both capacity for control and the psychological burden of navigating a transgression that defies conventional morality. This inversion highlights the fragile nature of hierarchy, demonstrating that privilege and authority are not absolute in the psychological realm, where fear, desire, and projection can shift the balance of perceived power. The gift becomes a catalyst for confronting hidden truths, illuminating the inner conflicts, suppressed impulses, and moral ambiguities that define human behavior. It challenges the plantation's social order while simultaneously exposing the inner landscapes of those involved, illustrating how external acts of domination or transgression are reflections of deeper psychological realities. In the symbolic sense, the daughter's body, already a marker of indulgence and vulnerability, is transformed into a site of encounter between opposites: wealth and deprivation, dominance and subjugation, innocence and experience. Her physicality, previously a symbol of privilege, becomes a vehicle for exploring complex psychological dynamics, a mirror reflecting not only her own unconscious fears and desires, but also those projected by the slave, the owner, and the broader societal gaze. The act of giving her to a slave also highlights the tension between external control and internal freedom, showing that even in a world dominated by strict hierarchy, human consciousness, perception, and ethical reasoning can resist, challenge, or transform imposed roles. In this sense, the transaction is less about literal possession and more about the confrontation between the conscious and unconscious, between social expectation and primal instinct, between what is permissible and what lurks in the shadow of human imagination. The shocking nature of the act forces all participants to reckon with the fluidity of power, revealing that social roles are constructs that can be destabilized by courage, circumstance, or confrontation with hidden truths. At the same time, the event serves as a mirror to the observers on the plantation, who are compelled to confront their own projections, fears, and unacknowledged impulses. The act of giving the daughter exposes collective anxieties about morality, control, desire, and the limits of societal order, showing that shock is not merely a response to external events, but a reflection of the inner conflicts and unexamined shadow within each individual. The narrative, when viewed through a psychological lens, suggests that acts of transgression and reversal, while disturbing on the surface, are deeply instructive, revealing the mechanisms by which human beings negotiate power, identity, and morality in constrained environments. The daughter's fate, entwined with the slave's moral and psychological experience, becomes a stage upon which the interplay of dominance, submission, curiosity, and ethical confrontation is enacted, illustrating that the human psyche is simultaneously shaped by external authority and internal reflection. By examining this act in detail, it becomes clear that the transaction is far more than a literal event. It is an exploration of human vulnerability, the fluidity of power, and the confrontation with forces that lie beneath conscious awareness, forces that compel reflection, transformation, and a reckoning with aspects of self and society that are otherwise ignored, suppressed, or denied. The shocking transformation of the daughter's body represents a moment in the narrative where physicality, psychology, and symbolism converge, creating a profound confrontation with human fragility, mortality, and the unconscious forces that govern existence. This transformation is not merely an alteration of flesh and form, it is a dramatic manifestation of the interplay between power, vulnerability, and the repressed impulses that lie beneath the surface of both individual and collective consciousness. On the plantation, where hierarchy dictates behavior and appearance defines value, the body has long been a symbol of status, indulgence, and authority. And the daughter's body, previously a representation of privilege, abundance, and entitlement, becomes a site where all these constructs are challenged, deconstructed, and exposed to forces beyond the control of either the family or the observer. The very act of transformation functions as a confrontation with the limits of human endurance, revealing the impermanence of physical form and the inevitability of change, decay, and exposure to forces that are simultaneously natural, psychological, and symbolic. In witnessing the daughter's transformation, those on the plantation are confronted with the fragility that lies beneath the surface of societal power, realizing that dominance and authority, while potent, are ultimately contingent upon circumstances, perception, and the unpredictable dynamics of the human body and mind. Psychologically, the transformation represents the eruption of the shadow, the aspects of existence that are denied, feared, or repressed, and which cannot be contained by wealth, status, or social convention. The daughter's physical alteration is a mirror of inner processes, both hers and those of the observers, revealing unconscious anxieties, hidden desires, and moral tensions that have long been kept at bay by the structured world of the plantation. The horror and fascination it provokes are inseparable, reflecting the human tendency to be both repelled by vulnerability and irresistibly drawn to the revelation of what is normally concealed, demonstrating that shock is rarely a simple response to external stimuli, but a complex reaction to internal recognition of fear, mortality, and the limits of control. The transformation also serves as a symbolic recalibration of the social order, disrupting the rigid hierarchy by exposing the vulnerabilities of those at the top and highlighting the fluidity of power in moments when the physical and psychological intersect. In this sense, the daughter's altered body becomes a site of moral and existential reflection, forcing all participants to confront uncomfortable truths about their reliance on social constructs, their assumptions about strength and weakness, and their projections of control onto a world that is inherently unpredictable and mutable. Beyond its immediate shock value, The transformation illustrates the intricate relationship between body and identity, showing that physical form is both a reflection of internal states and a canvas for social, psychological, and symbolic forces. The daughter, whose size once marked indulgence and privilege, now becomes a manifestation of exposure, fragility, and confrontation with mortality, reminding the observer that the human body, while socially and psychologically charged, is ultimately subject to processes beyond conscious control. The transformation can also be interpreted as a confrontation with ethical and moral boundaries, challenging both the plantation owner and the slave to navigate the tension between curiosity, dominance, vulnerability, and compassion. In this context, the physical alteration is inseparable from the psychological impact, demonstrating how acts that affect the body resonate with moral, ethical, and symbolic implications that extend far beyond the literal event. On a collective level, the shock experienced by those who witness the transformation is both a projection of personal anxieties and a reflection of societal discomfort with the unknown, the uncontrolled, and the unregulated. The horror elicited is intertwined with fascination, revealing the human tendency to be drawn toward moments of rupture that illuminate hidden truths, suppressed fears, and unresolved tensions. The daughter's transformation becomes a nexus where human vulnerability, societal expectation, and unconscious forces intersect, providing a lens through which to examine the deeper implications of power, submission, and the confrontation with mortality. It illustrates that the body, far from being a neutral vessel, is a site where psychological, cultural, and symbolic meanings converge, and where experiences of trauma, transgression, and revelation are inscribed in ways that cannot be ignored. In witnessing the transformation, all participants are forced to grapple with the consequences of unchecked privilege, the fragility of physical form, and the unavoidable reality that existence is subject to forces both external and internal, conscious and unconscious. The event emphasizes that shock, horror, and awe are not merely responses to physical changes, but are deeply entwined with recognition of the human condition, its vulnerabilities, and the moral, psychological, and existential questions that arise when societal and personal illusions of control are disrupted. The transformation, therefore, is both literal and metaphorical, illustrating the interplay between body, mind, and society, and offering a stark reminder that beneath the veneer of wealth, power, and social hierarchy, all human beings are subject to forces that cannot be fully predicted, controlled, or escaped, forces that reveal the shadow, expose vulnerability, and demand confrontation with the truths that lie within and beyond the self. The collective shock experienced by those who witnessed the daughter's transformation represents a phenomenon that extends far beyond the immediate horror of the physical alteration, revealing deep insights into human psychology, social dynamics, and the mechanisms by which fear, fascination, and moral anxiety are projected onto others. In the microcosm of the plantation, where every individual occupies a clearly defined position within a rigid hierarchy, the event disrupts the established order, forcing the observers to confront not only the shocking spectacle before them, but also the hidden, unacknowledged aspects of their own consciousness. Shock, in this context, is not simply a response to an external stimulus. It is the manifestation of internal conflict, a confrontation with desires, fears, and moral ambiguities that have been suppressed or ignored. The observer's horror is, in part, a projection of their own vulnerabilities and insecurities, revealing how deeply social hierarchy, privilege, and identity are intertwined with the perception of other people's experiences. The shock experienced by the family, the staff, and the wider community on the plantation is therefore inseparable from their own psychological and emotional states, as each witness interprets the transformation through the lens of personal fears, repressed desires, and social anxieties. In the eyes of the plantation owner, the event may evoke fear of loss of control, shame over the exposure of vulnerability, and fascination with a situation that defies expectation and hierarchy. In the eyes of the daughter, the shock is compounded by her sudden confrontation with a vulnerability that she has been shielded from all her life, a moment in which her body, her privilege, and her sense of identity are exposed to forces beyond her comprehension or control. For the slaves and those positioned lower in the social hierarchy, the spectacle may provoke a mixture of awe, fear, curiosity, and a sense of moral superiority or indignation, reflecting the complex interplay between powerlessness, empathy, and human fascination with transgression. Projection, in this sense, operates on multiple levels, serving as a psychological mechanism by which individuals attribute to others the feelings, desires, and fears that they cannot consciously recognize or accept within themselves. The observer's horror is, therefore, a mirror reflecting their own hidden anxieties about power, morality, vulnerability, and mortality. The event becomes a catalyst for collective self-examination, whether consciously acknowledged or not, revealing that human beings often experience extreme emotional responses, not solely because of the external event itself, but because it activates latent fears, unresolved conflicts, and unacknowledged aspects of the psyche. This dynamic demonstrates the profound ways in which personal psychology and social environment interact, showing that collective shock is rarely uniform or purely situational. Rather, it is shaped by the unique histories, perspectives, and inner conflicts of those who witness the event, as well as by the symbolic meanings attached to the act, the individuals involved, and the social hierarchy that governs behavior and perception. In the case of the plantation, the shock and projection are amplified by the rigid class system, the stark contrasts between wealth and poverty, privilege and deprivation, dominance and subjugation. The act of giving the daughter to a slave and the subsequent transformation challenge these boundaries, forcing all witnesses to confront the instability of social constructs and the fragility of human control. As such, the horror observed is inseparable from the recognition that societal norms, power structures, and inherited privilege offer only the illusion of stability and security, and that beneath the surface of order lies a turbulent psychological landscape filled with shadow impulses, moral ambiguity, and suppressed fear. The observer's reactions, when analyzed, reveal how projection operates as a defense mechanism, allowing individuals to externalize the aspects of themselves they find threatening or unacceptable, seeing them instead in others. Their shock is thus intertwined with fascination, curiosity, revulsion, and moral judgment, as they grapple not only with what has been done to the daughter, but with the parts of themselves that are mirrored in the event. This interplay of emotion, projection, and reflection highlights the broader psychological principle that human beings often interpret external events through internalized schemas of fear, desire, morality, and social expectation, and that extreme events can trigger an intense confrontation with these latent psychic structures. Furthermore, the collective shock underscores the notion that moral and ethical sensibilities are not merely abstract concepts, but deeply intertwined with perception, projection, and social context, demonstrating that what is perceived as horrific is often as much a reflection of the observer's inner world as it is of the event itself. In the plantation context, where every individual is acutely aware of rank, privilege, and vulnerability, the act of witnessing the daughter's transformation becomes a profound exercise in psychological projection, forcing confrontation with hidden anxieties, unacknowledged moral dilemmas, and the universality of human vulnerability. The event illuminates how collective experiences of shock function as mirrors to the unconscious, revealing truths about power, fear, morality, and human curiosity, and demonstrating that extreme events are rarely isolated in their impact, but ripple outward, affecting perception, relationships, and consciousness in ways that are complex, deeply symbolic, and psychologically resonant. The shock is both communal and intensely personal, binding the observers together in shared awe and horror, while simultaneously reflecting the unique contours of each individual psyche, illustrating that the act of witnessing is inseparable from the process of projection, moral reckoning, and confrontation with the hidden dimensions of human experience. The story of the plantation, the daughter, and the shocking events that unfold can be understood not only through physical and social dynamics, but also through the lens of psychological archetypes and the inner conflicts that define human experience, revealing the symbolic structures that govern behavior, perception, and moral response. Archetypes, as universal patterns embedded in the collective unconscious, shape the way individuals experience and interpret events, and in this narrative, each character embodies aspects of these timeless psychological figures, creating a multi-layered exploration of human consciousness, desire, and fear. The plantation owner represents the tyrant archetype, the figure of authority who wields power with the assumption of infallibility, shaping the lives of others according to rigid rules and personal desires. His authority is both external and internalized, reflecting the ways in which societal hierarchies and inherited privilege shape identity and moral perception. Yet even in his power, the tyrant is not free from inner conflict, for the act of giving his daughter to a slave exposes latent fears, curiosity, and unconscious impulses, revealing that the human psyche is rarely governed solely by conscious intention, and that shadow forces can emerge unpredictably, destabilizing even the most firmly established structures of dominance. The daughter herself embodies the archetype of the innocent, yet this innocence is complicated by indulgence, entitlement, and vulnerability, creating a tension between naivety and awareness, dependence and exposure. Her physical form, previously a symbol of privilege and abundance, becomes a site for the projection of social, moral, and psychological forces, reflecting not only her own unconscious fears and desires, but also those of the people around her. She functions as a catalyst for transformation, both literal and symbolic, forcing observers to confront aspects of themselves that are otherwise concealed or repressed. The slave, positioned at the intersection of subjugation and latent power, embodies the archetype of the trickster, whose role challenges social norms and moral expectations. The trickster's presence reveals the instability of hierarchical structures, the ambiguity of ethical boundaries, and the transformative potential of situations where established rules are disrupted. Through interaction with the daughter and the unfolding events, the trickster archetype illuminates the fluidity of power, the complexity of human motivation, and the ways in which rebellion, cunning, or moral ambiguity can expose hidden truths and catalyze psychological change. Each observer of the events becomes a reflection of the archetypal interplay, projecting their own fears, desires, and ethical judgments onto the narrative, illustrating how collective experience and individual consciousness are intertwined through shared symbolic frameworks. The shocking transformation of the daughter's body is emblematic of the confrontation with the shadow archetype, the hidden, denied, or feared aspects of the psyche that exist beneath conscious awareness and which often emerge in moments of crisis, transgression, or intense emotional experience. The shadow forces both internal reflection and projection, challenging individuals to recognize the darker or unacknowledged parts of themselves and demonstrating that morality, fear, fascination, and judgment are inseparable from the unconscious processes that structure human experience. In witnessing the transformation, the characters and observers are forced to grapple with contradictions between appearance and reality, innocence and experience, power and vulnerability, reflecting the broader inner conflict that defines human consciousness. The interplay of archetypes, tyrant, innocent, trickster, shadow, creates a psychological drama that transcends the literal events, allowing the narrative to function as an allegory for the confrontation between conscious and unconscious forces, social expectation and moral reflection, privilege and vulnerability. The events of the plantation reveal that inner conflict is not merely an individual phenomenon, but a collective experience, shaped by social structures, inherited hierarchies, and shared moral assumptions, and that each archetype, while distinct in expression, interacts dynamically with the others to produce tension, revelation, and transformation. The psychological resonance of the story lies in its capacity to illuminate these patterns, showing that human beings are constantly negotiating between instinct, desire, morality, and social constraint, and that extreme circumstances, such as the shocking transformation, force the confrontation with aspects of self and society that are normally hidden, denied, or ignored. Furthermore, the narrative illustrates the ways in which archetypal patterns provide structure to the human experience, creating recognizable motifs that allow individuals to interpret, project, and respond to events with a combination of emotion, judgment, and insight. By framing the character's actions and reactions in archetypal terms, it becomes evident that shock, fascination, horror, and moral judgment are not merely responses to external events, but are deeply rooted in universal psychological structures that shape human consciousness across time and culture. The plantation becomes a stage where the archetypes are enacted, revealing the complex interplay between conscious choice and unconscious influence, social role and individual identity, privilege and vulnerability. In this context, the story functions as both a narrative and a psychological mirror, reflecting the inner conflicts, shadow impulses, and ethical dilemmas that define the human condition. It shows that transformation, transgression, and confrontation with hidden truths are not merely dramatic devices, but essential processes through which the psyche negotiates the balance between awareness and denial, morality and desire, dominance and submission. The narrative demonstrates that the archetypal patterns embedded in human consciousness, tyrant, innocent, trickster, shadow, exist in dynamic interaction, creating tension, revealing hidden truths, and compelling both characters and observers to grapple with the full spectrum of human experience, from fear and fascination to moral reflection and psychological integration. The story ultimately illustrates that inner conflict is inseparable from the external world, and that human experience is shaped by a continual negotiation between archetypal forces, unconscious impulses, and conscious awareness, offering profound insight into the psychological mechanisms that underlie perception, morality, and the confrontation with vulnerability and transformation. The tale of the daughter, the slave, and the events that shook the plantation is more than a story of power or physical transformation. It is a mirror held up to the human psyche, revealing the archetypes that govern our inner world and the shadow aspects we often deny. It reminds us that shock, fascination, and moral confrontation are not external phenomena alone, but reflections of inner truths, unacknowledged desires, and hidden fears. In witnessing or imagining these events, we are invited to explore the delicate balance between dominance and vulnerability, privilege and responsibility, consciousness and the unconscious, and to recognize that understanding the darkness within ourselves is as necessary as confronting it in the world around us.